Welcome back to another crypto and equity market update. Today is April 2nd, 2020, and this update is going to consist of the last 2 quarters. I have been very busy these last 2 quarters with investing, and as one subscriber astutely pointed out, I did not create a video for my strategy for quarter 1 of 2020, which in hindsight, I really wish I would have. I wish that I had been more active with my updates, my market updates, but I've been very busy applying to law school. I'm also an expecting father, so I've had a lot of other obligations, and yeah, I just haven't been able to do it. But it's unfortunate because this has been a very crazy time in the markets, as many of you guys probably know. Everything from repo to oil shock, and now a global supply and demand shock due to coronavirus. The Fed's talking about QE infinity, and there's just so much so much to talk about. And these videos, I try to keep them about 10 minutes long. I don't like to go too much longer than that, but I do try to not only update you guys on what I've done in the markets for myself and for the sake of prosperity, just because I want to be able to go back and look at these videos and see what I was thinking, and really just document and test my own thoughts and test my own sort of assumptions and such. And I'm going to put this on mute because I'm sure I'm going to get another text, and that's going to be very loud. But I do have some notes. I've been very active in the market the last, 6 months. And been doing a lot of buying, a lot of selling, doing a little bit of trading as well. Put on my first sort of, momentum trade, very speculative. But I went through my statements, my Fidelity statements and my Robinhood statements, just to make sure that I'm being, transparent and telling you guys exactly how things have played out. And I'm very proud of myself. I think I've done pretty well in the equity markets, made obviously some mistakes, and I'm going to talk about those, and then I'll move on to crypto and sort of give you guys my thoughts there, and then summarize like a global macro perspective and how I'm playing my chess pieces for quarter 2 of 2020. But I think the biggest success I had, two of them, was kind of predicting the top. ITOT, which is the BlackRock S&P 500 Index ETF. I have been watching a lot of Real Vision. I recently subscribed to Real Vision, and Recession Watch, along with this sort of nebulous understanding that I have of ETF liquidity or illiquidity, or just problems with the passive investing strategies over the last 10 years, really made me weary of the all-time highs, as it were. And you had you had tweets from President Trump talking about sort of rallying for more and more inflows, and really beating his own drum. And to me, these were signs of exuberance. These were signs of a top. And I decided on, January 22nd, that I wanted to take some chips off the table for ITOT. I first bought ITOT back in April of 2017. Dollar cost averaged with a cost basis of about $61. And I sold 2/3 of my position on January 22nd for $75. So, about a 30% gain there, and felt really, really good about that. I then took some of those profits and reinvested into a bond trade. And I really want to thank Raoul Paul for, sort of putting me onto this trade. It was, I'd never been a bond guy. I always imagined that I would never touch bonds. But one day I was on Twitter, and Raul put out this tweet about how extremely underpriced, and from a risk reward perspective, asymmetric the trade was for bonds. and this was sort of before the crisis and before the Fed cut interest rates. And sure enough, they did. And luckily enough, on February 4th, I bought into VGLT, which is a 20-year bond indexed by Vanguard. And I sold very shortly after on March 23rd at $100. So that was a quick little profit and was very pleased with that. I then, on January, February, March was clearly a very active month for me. I ended up selling the other remaining 1/3 of my ITOT at $57.50. So that was a $4 loss, from my $61 basis. But I knew I had to do it. I knew that things were going to get worse, and they did. I think ITOT is trading around like $45, $43 right now. So I was just happy not to lose money. You don't make money in investing until you take the money off the table, right? And part of investing is not only making money, but making sure you don't lose money. So that kind of gets me to another one of my decisions with Nintendo. So Nintendo is a stock that I have been purchasing on the low, and I hadn't really talked about it because I was accumulating. I still very much liked the company, but I just felt like I knew something was in the air. Just one of those gut instinct sort of things. And I actually don't have the date that I did this. I'm assuming it was sometime in March, but I definitely the first quarter of 2020. I sold my Nintendo stock. My cost basis was $38 there. I've been buying Nintendo since 2017. I sold at $45, and that was down from about $52. This was a lesson for me because I had always had $50 as a selling price for Nintendo, but I let my own greed sort of get to me, and then I watched it decline back to $45, felt like the market was going lower, and just knew that I was going to be happy with those gains, wanted to make sure that I just retained those gains, and so I sold. I think Nintendo is trading around $48 right now, so it's been, all things considered, I'm happy I did it, but it hasn't really been too much of a game changer. But Snapchat is a company that I've made many videos on, talking about why I'm bullish, and maybe I'll have that video pop up, sort of my investment thesis for Snapchat, why I bought in. Been a buyer of Snapchat since 2017, and back in July, I sold 50% of my Snapchat holdings at $17.73. My cost basis was about $10. Snapchat had been a company that I started investing in at $15, kept buying all the way down to $5, rode it all the way back up to about $18, and decided to sell 50% at that time. Felt really good about that, and then sold the remaining 50% in October of 2019 at $14.82 because I felt like it was going lower. And I was right. It was going lower. And I started buying again back in March of this year, March 13th. Started buying Snap at $11. And right now it's trading at about $12, a little bit over $11. And I'm looking for Snapchat anywhere under $10. To me, it's a steal anywhere under $10. Would ride it all the way back down to $5 and continue to buy. I'm very bullish on Snapchat and the future of Snapchat. Going back now to the front of this page, a couple of new things that I haven't mentioned. In my Roth, in my retirement account, starting back in November of 2019, I started buying GBTC. I am a Bitcoin bull. GBTC is a Bitcoin trust. I forgot what's the company that. Anyways, but it's kind of a cheeky way to get Bitcoin into your retirement accounts. And right now, that is the only asset I actually hold in my Roth. So it's kind of interesting knowing that, I'm going to hold on to that Bitcoin, those shares of GBTC. I've continued to buy since I started buying back in November. And we'll just continue to add to that position at different times whenever I feel appropriate, whenever I feel it's undervalued. And GBTC is really interesting just because it trades during regular market hours, but Bitcoin trades like all the time. So there's some like pretty cheeky trades you could do there. So I want to start to, well, yep. This was a really fun trade for me. Chesapeake Energy, and it very, very speculative. I mentioned this in the beginning, but there were, Chesapeake Energy is a company based out of Oklahoma City. The Oklahoma City Thunder Arena is the Chesapeake Energy Arena. So I'm very familiar with the company, but long story short, back in November of 2019, between November 12th and November 19th, they started having some debt crises, I guess you can say, and their stock went below $1, went down to like 50 cents. I decided, heck, why not? I'm going to throw a little bit of money at this. If it goes to zero, so what? I don't really care. If it goes back up to $1, I'll sell. And yeah, so I kept buying between November 12th and November 19th. And then within about a month, during December 17th, 18th, 23rd, and then all the way to January 3rd, I kept selling at different intervals. I think I sold at like 75 cents, 80 cents, and then 91 cents. And I'm completely out of Chesapeake, feel very good about that. It was just a lot of fun for me, honestly. I'm not like that type of person. I'm usually a buy and hold. I like to buy things with at least a 5 to 10 year time horizon. But it was just fun, and I liked doing it. So that worked out well for me. I'm sure I'll get wrecked at some point in the future trying to do something like that. But this time it worked out. Been talking a lot about my winners, and going to start to get into some things that have just been kind of steady. I've continually bought Galaxy Digital. I made a video about that. I'll have that pop up right now, why I'm an investor in Galaxy Digital. Still very bullish on the company. Still a big fan of Mike Novogratz. And then back in December, I decided to get into a mining junior based out of Canada called Pure Gold, and started buying them at about 55 cents. I've still just been dollar cost averaging into them over the last 3-4 months, and will continue to buy them. Still a big fan of that company, still a big fan of gold in general. And yes, so the last one that I kind of want to talk about, this one has been the most painful for me. Continental Resources. I mentioned them last time I made a video, and Continental Resources is a company that's very dear to my heart. Again, another oil exploration company based out of Oklahoma City. And originally they're based out of Enid, which is where I'm from. So a big fan of Continental, very much a fan of the management there. And oil has been, so I'm not an oil analyst or an energy analyst or anything of the sorts. And my thesis on oil has always been a very, sort of doom and gloom sort of thesis, which is essentially I see oil as a hedge against the possibility of war. And yeah, I fancy myself like a global macro investor, and I still see the probability of war between the United States and a number of countries, whether it be Venezuela, Iran, now possibly looks like China, Russia. We seem to be in like this like global Cold War, and you're really seeing it play out with tariffs. I've done videos where I've talked about Ray Dalio's big debt crises, in which trade wars often lead to real wars. And Continental Resources is just a very well positioned oil explorer, and they have very large holdings in the Balkan, in North Dakota, or is it South Dakota? Very smart management team, but my cost basis for Continental is it was about $48. At one point, Continental was trading up around $52, $54. Since then, oil has taken a big hit. A variety of factors there. The primary one, many people believe, has to do with Russia and their role with OPEC and their refusal to reduce their production. Actually, today, some news came out that Donald Trump's going to be meeting with some American CEOs. I'm assuming Harold Hamm's going to be amongst them, and also meeting with Russia and Iran or Iraq Saudi Arabia, I think, actually, to kind of talk about the global oil production and tried to protect America's oil interest. It would be interesting to see how that plays out. That led to a 10% rally in Continental stock today. Continental is trading about $9, I want to say. But yesterday, I bought some more Continental at $7. So, look, I am a bargain hunter, and it has been an emotional roller coaster with Continental. At one time, I really just wanted to sell the whole thing, like just sell it off, take the loss. But I ended up deciding that that was not the smart thing to do. I was willing to hold it for another 10 years. So I was like, I'm not going to take that loss. I'm not hurting for, liquid cash or anything like that. So let me just ride this out. But it's been a very big lesson on emotional control. And yeah, I'm just very interested to see how that's going to continue to play out. I have been purchasing some more Continental. I am still predicting that we're going to see another like 20 to 30% decline in the stock market from where we are today. And, basically Continental anywhere in the $7 and below range, I'm a buyer. And it'll be interesting to see how this whole thing plays out. But I've also been buying Square. We'll always buy Square. Continued to buy first MAJESTIC, which is a silver mining company, very much similar to my gold thesis with Pure Gold. I'm a silver investor as well. Silver bullion and silver miners. I basically see it as a leveraged play on gold. But a new sort of thesis that's been brewing, and I've started making some purchases just to kind of dip my toes. I have started buying some ETNs, agricultural ETNs, and maybe in the future I'll do a video on my thesis here. But the short of it is, I think we could be entering into a period of stagflation, that is negative growth and inflation. So historically, during those periods, commodities do very well. Oil, consumer electricity. I like RJA, which is a Jim Rogers ETN, agricultural ETN. It tracks wheat, soy, a couple of different livestock, and then also DBA, which is another agriculture ETN. And maybe in the future I will do a video talking a little bit more about those. But I also look at these from a sort of like market cycle theory perspective. Agricultural commodities are trading at like 100-year lows right now. And so to me, I like to buy things when they're cheap. The thesis hasn't been completely formulated, but I mean, I think stagflation and a hedge against stagflation is kind of really how I see that working in my portfolio. So be excited to talk about this. Video is going on a lot longer, but that's because I have a lot of things to say. So I guess maybe this is going to just be a longer form video. Now getting to the good stuff, crypto. Crypto has been very fun to watch. Bitcoin in particular, watching how it performs during this crisis. It sold off really big, and I was buying all the way down. Still been buying. I think I buy just about every day. And it's been very interesting to see. Many people are talking about a decoupling of Bitcoin from traditional markets. Whenever the stock market sold off, everything went with it. Gold, bonds, Bitcoin. And we've entered into this very weird phase now where I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on Bitcoin, watching what it does. It seems like it could be decoupling from the S&P 500, which it's just very interesting to see how the mainstream media doesn't really talk about Bitcoin. But I have continued to be an investor in the crypto space. Some new projects that I've invested in are Numeria, which I have not talked about before, but am a big fan of Numeria. That's already paid off very well for me. And MakerDAO. I have decided that I wanted to get more exposure to Ethereum, so I started buying a little bit of MakerDAO. Maybe in the future I'll make a video about why I like that project as well. But in the past I've talked about Decentraland. I've bought Decentraland. I've talked about FunFair. I've bought FunFair. And I've obviously continued to buy Decred, which is right next to Bitcoin, my second major holding. Bitcoin makes up a lion's share of my crypto portfolio, about 75%. But I like other projects too, and I think that other projects will flourish. Decred being the one I'm most bullish on, and I think I've made videos on that before, so maybe I'll have that pop up right now. But yeah, the crypto space is just, as I said earlier in this video, I am a big subscriber to, or subscriber, no, I am a subscriber to Real Vision, and Raoul Pal is probably the investor I admire the most right now, at this sort of stage in my life. But he had an interview with Dan Tapiero a little while ago, a couple days ago, and he talked about how the crypto space is sort of the new, like, it's where all the activity is going. It's where the young, intelligent, aspirational, I think he likened it to crypto today is where global macro was in the 90s, which was sort of like this new nascent way of investing and was very cutting edge. And it's just very cool to watch sort of like the generation above sort of, I guess, nodding their head to the generation below, where many people on Wall Street and traditional investors still kind of sneer at crypto. Some of the players who have been very successful in global macro investing are just continuing to nod their head in approval at Bitcoin and the crypto space in general. And that is just very encouraging to a young investor like myself. And so I'm just going to wrap up this video saying this next quarter, I expect that a lion's share of the money I will put into the market will be going into the crypto space. Those projects I named in various allocations at various times. I see investing as a game of chess. It's about reacting. I think like there's very much a predictive element to things, especially when you get into global macro, and Raoul talks about it in terms of a jigsaw puzzle, and I think that's very true. That's like constantly changing, and you have to not only predict probabilistically, but also react. And to me, the game is just played one day at a time. It's continual learning. It's continuing to invest in yourself. But I have started to understand that my specialty is really in crypto. And I have recently started to convince myself that I should double down on my research and interest in the crypto investing space. I've gotten, as you guys can see just from going through my portfolio has become quite broad. I think that I have been very much persuaded, or at least influenced, by Ray Dalio, who is another investor that I admire greatly, talking about diversification. But I have started to take self-inventory and realize that my real domain of expertise is in the crypto space. I've been studying it, basically full time since 2017. So it's the space that I have the most knowledge in. And I also see it as the space with the most potential for upside. And yeah, as we look towards quarter two of 2020, I will be keeping my eye on oil. I'll be probably watching the price of oil every day. I'll be watching gold, watching how gold reacts. I'm expecting the S&P 500 to go down from here. I'm expecting this depression. I do believe we have entered into a depression, not a recession. I expect it to go on for at least 12 months, if not longer. Coronavirus is something that I will be, keeping my eyes and ears to, and seeing the response from political leaders on not only a health policy stance, but also a monetary and fiscal policy response. And yeah, I think the last thing I'll say is that those of you who are subscribers to my channel know that I am also getting into real estate. I have I'll be sitting for the realtor exam. I'm actually sitting in my broker's office right now. If she is watching this, Kathy, I'm sorry I'm sitting at your desk, but yeah, that's why I have this nice thing behind me. Is I've been trying to get her on the YouTube game, and we're gonna get her social media game super right. So just very excited about everything that's happening in my life right now. Very excited about investing, the digital asset space, real estate, global macro investing, and just being a continual life learner, guys, is the best part about this game that I'm playing. And I do see it as a game. I see it as a game of chess. Yeah, I hope that older me will look back on these videos with a little bit of approval and knowing that you were doing the right things. And even when you got discouraged, or when things got hard, or you were balancing school and applying to law school and working a 9 to 5 and trying to become a realtor and studying the markets and becoming a father, so many things, balancing my relationship, so many things that have been going on. I hope that he can look back at himself and say, like, you were doing the right thing. And if not, if I look back and say you were doing the wrong thing, I hope that I can look back on these things and at least learn from my mistakes and see what my reasoning was and see what I was thinking and hold myself accountable. And that's why I make these videos. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next quarter. Peace.